Good morning and welcome to this session about connected storytelling. So today we're going to talk about how we can use the Vizrt platform to tell our stories in a simpler and better way. We have been about storytelling since the beginning of our company, like these early days virtual studio over 20 years ago. Storytelling is still in the core of the DNA of our company, but the way the stories are consumed is vastly different today than before. In addition to the traditional platforms, we consume content on tablets, phones, social media, online video platforms, and a growing number of platforms. And interestingly enough, this year will be the first where we consume more content online than on air. And we believe that we have to address the way we create the content in order to succeed in getting to the people that's consuming that content. So when talking to our customers and trying to understand the situation, we have identified three items or three areas where we have to be really excellent in order to succeed in this space. The first one is branding. With this increasing number of platforms, we believe that we have to be recognized on all of these platforms. The second part is live production and the ability to streamline live production to create simpler operation but more impressive result. And the last part is content repurposing. And content repurposing is to take that high quality, high value content that we have created and put that on any platform easily and very simple. Now, we're going to start off with branding. And what better way to start off than with some proper election content. So let's run the election. So when we're talking about branding, one of the first things that comes to mind is graphics, right? And data-driven graphics has been a very important tool for telling complex story in a simple way and also make the viewers have a beautiful look at how we're presenting our data. Now, data-driven graphics will still be extremely important for years to come when it comes to branding, but we want to look if we could take the branding and extend that term into whatever we want to do in our studio. And combining every element in the studio to create a consistent brand throughout the whole broadcast. So I want to bring up an example. One of our customers, MediaCorp in Singapore, they have been able to combine video wall graphics with all the other elements in the studio, simply synchronized by Vizrt Studio Automation. And you can see here on the screens above my head, you can see this opener. And as soon as we're running the opener, you can see that we're starting to combine the different elements here, robotic cameras, video walls, and also clips into the studio space. And actually, we're breaking down the boundaries between the content and the studio, bringing this into the actual action. And me as a presenter, I'm able to interact with that content in a much more dynamic way than before. Now, this would be very complex to operate if you were in a manual control room, but thanks to Vizrt and that studio automation, my director here is able to single-handedly operate all the elements that we have. And this is as dynamic as it is easy. So that means that if I wanted to change something, if I wanted to skip a headline or manually interfere in this rundown, it would be as easy as running this planned sequence. Now, this is very much touching on live production, and live production is key in one of the things that we're talking about here today. So I want to touch a little bit more on live production. And even though the control room is great, very important for live production, one of the other aspects that is very important is where the story is born. And this is typically with the journalist in the newsroom. So let's bring up our newsroom system here. Today we're running an iNews system. It could really be any other system as well. And inside the iNews system, we are running the Viz Pilot Edge. Pilot Edge is our HTML5 based plugin that's really the gateway for the journalist to anything in the Vizrt ecosystem. Here we can browse for graphics, for instance. We can open that graphics, and as soon as we start filling out the content, you can actually see a live preview of that and how that will look on air or on any other platform right in the plugin. We can also search for media inside this plugin. So for instance here, we can have a look at the different pieces of content from my content management system. I can open that and I can browse the proxy of that video as well. Now, pay attention, we're really not leaving this interface, and that's great. Like, journalists don't want to learn too many new interfaces, so the ability to create everything in a single interface is very important for them as well. Now, this is where it gets interesting. What you can see my journalist here is doing is actually is bringing the two together, video and graphics. So here I'm actually able to, with a timeline view down here, put graphics on my video clip. And my journalist can easily see a composite of the two and understand exactly how this will look on air. Now, this is simple, this is very easy to do, and it's thanks to the Vizrt's Metagraphics principle, where we're storing graphics and media as metadata, but as separate elements. So that means that we can bind the two together in the destination rather than burning in the graphics at this stage. You'll see more of that a little bit later. Now we can drag that into our rundown, and that is really the planning job done. So let's go into the control room, and this is my Vizrt control room interface. Here I can get a full real-time updated rundown from my iNews system. These are my stories. Currently I'm on this red item. The next story I'm going to run is my opening clip, as you can see here. And the third one is my package that we just prepared in the rundown. Now what's interesting here is that this is not only for information. This system has also the ability to control all the aspects of my production, and it's actually running the show you're seeing here right now. So my director is able to run, of course, the demos that you see, in addition to what's running on the screens in my program and on the wall. So it's really simple to operate a lot of different elements at the same time. Now we could have stopped there and said, okay, great, we're only going to operate the linear output for regular television, but today we're going to talk about multi-platform, and what better way of showing that than to actually do live multi-platform adaptation. So let's get in some platforms here. Here you can see that we're actually running multiple versions of the opener for the different platforms to utilize the screens in the best possible way. And where we're coming to the clip that we just prepared, you can see that even though it was simple for the journalist just to update one graphics item on the clip, we can actually adapt that to the different platforms to make sure that the viewers experience the best possible experience on any of these platforms. And that's extremely important. Let's also bring in the data-driven graphics. Okay, great. So here you see the data-driven graphics from earlier. And on these big horizontally oriented screens, you can see that we can stack these, put these side by side in a very nice way. But we also want to maximize the utilization of the vertical screens. So here we can stack the graphics on top of each other. So that's great. And then we want to take it even one more step. So we want to show you also the MediaCorp opener again. Let's run that right away. And then you can see here now we're starting off the same way. So here we're starting off running the MediaCorp opener in a very nice fashion. We're running that and we want to show off the augmented reality graphics and our studio. So we'll start with running the whole thing as the same on all the devices. But one of the challenges here is, of course, that we also have these opening headline clips that are vastly different, and they will be too small to actually view on these tiny devices compared to the big TV. So let's run the headline sequences and see what happens. So now we can see that we're actually running some of these clips full screen while we're running others in the augmented reality graphics. This would be extremely complex to do in a manual operation, but my director here, he looks fairly comfortable still. So I think we're good, and that is thanks to the automation system, Vizrt. So that is routing everything on my vision mixer. It can use any major brand vision mixer that you have, and we would be able to do a similar result in a very simple way. All right, so we have done the live production, and the live production is, of course, the very important in this process. But the ability to take that content and further monetize it is something that we have to do. So what I want to show you now is that we actually been live ingesting all of this content during my talk here today into our Viz1 content management system. So while I've been talking, we have ingested that content. It's still a growing file on my system, and now I'm able to access that from any of my Vizrt applications, including this one, our Viz Story online publishing and media creation tool. We can run this in the browser, so it's very easy, and I can edit my video, and I can identify new media, for instance, the growing file I just creating. So here's my growing file. My online journalist can here set in and out points on the growing file while it's still growing, and we can start editing this. So I base the timeline on that in and out point, and now I can add more clips, so I can start editing this clip in particular. Here I can add more graphics, and pay attention to, I can actually do exactly the same workflow as I had in my live workflow, which means that we don't have to learn different interfaces for different tasks, whether it's live or non-live. It's the same experience and the same user experience for the journalist, which is great. Okay, but I want to create a different version as well. Can you open the portrait mode? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so here in the portrait mode, you can see that I'm not really in the action. I'm not, because parts of this will be cropped out, right? So what I'm able to do is to pan in the interface itself to make sure that the person that's going to be in the action can actually be viewed on all the devices. And more than that, you can see that the graphics is adapted, and the panning is actually keyframeable, so you can adapt or adjust the graphics or adjust the panning of the clip to what where the action is as well. All right, so now we're going to publish this, and in a traditional NLE we would have to wait for rendering and creating different versions, but Vizrt does that automatically for us. So that means that I can just hook off whatever format I want, a landscape or a portrait or a square. This is for my custom web page, could also be for social media if I wanted to do that, or back to my broadcast. So here you can see that I can also fire this back into my broadcast, and I can actually rebroadcast that. All right, so then I can just publish that. And this is really the job done for the online journalist. Now the system will render out the different versions, and it will also publish all the clips in the background. So I really don't have to worry anymore about this. And that's great, because now I can actually focus on creating more content instead of technical difficulties. So as you understand, we have created a platform that allows us to break down the barriers between newsroom to control room and also control room to the online department. And that is really what this is about. Taking those pieces of content and exposing them to the different users in different ways. That has been the connected storytelling. Next up is Nick. He's going to talk about our sports product. Thank you very much.